Okay, so let's dive into Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch.
Oh, right.
So, um, you're thinking about reading it? Maybe.
Yeah.
It won the Pulitzer Prize.
Big book.
It's a long one, over 800 pages. That's a pretty serious commitment to make for any book. So we're here to give you a little bit of a preview, I guess you could say, a sneak peek, maybe.
Yeah, a little taste to see if it's right for you.
Yeah, exactly. See if it's worth your time, ultimately. So, this book, it got a lot of buzz when it came out. Some people loved it. Some people really didn't. We'll talk about all that.
Exactly.
But before we even get into that, why don't you just tell me your initial reaction when you read this book? What stuck out to you the most? What was your first impression?
Well, honestly, I've been a Donna Tartt fan since her first book, The Secret History. So I was really excited to read this one. And I was not disappointed. Her writing style is just so immersive and so detailed. It's like you're stepping right into the world of the book. Like, for example, there's a scene where Theo describes this rundown house in Las Vegas, and you can practically feel the grit between your fingers, smell the stale cigarette smoke.
Yeah, I get that. I've had that experience with some books where they're really descriptive, but sometimes it feels like it's a little bit too much. It's like the author's trying too hard. Did you ever feel that way with The Goldfinch? Like it was just too much description?
No, not really. Not with this book. I think Tartt uses those details really effectively to like build atmosphere and reveal character. For example, the way Theo describes antique furniture,
Right.
it kind of shows his growing obsession with craftsmanship, with this idea of order in a really chaotic world. So yeah, it's all very intentional and it works really well, I think.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying the details are important, but what about the actual plot?
Yeah. Like, what's The Goldfinch about in a nutshell?
Okay, so it's basically a coming-of-age story about this boy named Theo Decker who, tragically, he survives a terrorist bombing that kills his mother.
Wow.
Yeah. And in the aftermath of this horrific event, he steals a small but really valuable painting called The Goldfinch.
He steals the painting. Okay.
It does.
So he steals the painting, and then what? Where does the story go from there?
Well, that one act, sets him on this really tumultuous journey. He ends up bouncing between these wealthy homes in Manhattan. Then he goes to the seedy underbelly of Las Vegas, and he eventually lands in the art world of Amsterdam.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. And all along the way, he's grappling with grief, addiction, the weight of this secret.
That sounds pretty intense for, one character to deal with. What about the other people in his life? Does he have any, really memorable friends or people he meets along the way?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Tartt's really known for creating these larger-than-life characters. They're flawed, but really compelling.
Like, for example, there's Boris, who's Theo's friend from Las Vegas. He's charismatic, but also really troubled. And their relationship is sort of this mix of, destruction and fierce loyalty.
That sounds kind of like Charles Dickens,
Yes.
creating those really vivid, unforgettable characters.
Absolutely. I think that comparison is spot on. Tartt, like Dickens, really excels at crafting characters that feel so real, even when they're behaving badly. And Theo definitely isn't always likable, by the way.
Oh, really?
He makes a lot of bad choices, hurts people, often acts impulsively.
Interesting. Because I actually read some reviews where people were saying that they found Theo annoying and unsympathetic. Like, what would you say to someone who feels that way?
It's true. He's not a traditional hero, right?
Right.
He's really messy, flawed, kind of self-destructive. But I think that's what makes him so interesting. He's not a character you just cheer for. You wrestle with him, you analyze him, you try to understand him.
Right. It's kind of like, those anti-heroes you see in TV shows.
Totally.
The ones who do bad things, but we still kind of root for them.
Exactly. And I think that complexity is part of what makes The Goldfinch such a rewarding read. It's not just a simple adventure story. It really digs into these deeper questions about morality and grief and the search for meaning.
You mentioned grief earlier with Theo's mom, the bombing.
Yeah.
That has to be a major theme in the book, right?
Oh, absolutely. The book opens with that really traumatic event, and it kind of casts a shadow over Theo's entire journey. He's haunted by the loss of his mother and constantly trying to find ways to, cope with the pain.
Yeah, I can imagine that could be a pretty emotionally heavy journey.
Wow.
Is there any lightheartedness in the book at all? Like any moments of humor or hope?
I mean, there are definitely moments of humor, especially with characters like Boris, who has this kind of dark, cynical wit that can be surprisingly funny. But overall, it's not a lighthearted book. It deals with some pretty serious stuff.
Like what are some of the other big ideas that Tartt is exploring in the book?
Well, one of the most prominent themes is the power of art. Remember that stolen painting, the Goldfinch?
Right.
It becomes this really powerful symbol in the story. It represents beauty, loss, obsession, and this enduring power of art to connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
It makes me think of that quote, "We have art in order not to die of the truth." I haven't read The Goldfinch in a while, but that line's always stuck with me.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, that quote, which Theo encounters early on, I think it really gets at the heart of what Tart's exploring. How art can help us cope with difficult emotions, how it can help us find meaning even in the face of suffering, and connect us to something, timeless and transcendent.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. So
Yeah.
we've got a coming-of-age story, a stolen painting, this cast of like really complex characters, and then these deeper themes about grief, art, and the search for meaning. It sounds like a lot to unpack.
It is. It really is. It's a richly layered novel, and there's always something new to discover with each reading.
For those listeners who love to really dig into a book and analyze it, this sounds perfect. But what about for people who prefer a little bit faster pace? Would The Goldfinch be a good fit for them too?
That's where the book's length comes in. I think if you're looking for a quick, light read, The Goldfinch might not be the best choice.
Hmm.
It's definitely a slow burn, a book that requires patience and a willingness to really immerse yourself in Tart's world.
You keep mentioning the immersive style. How would you describe Tartt's writing to someone who's never read her work before?
Imagine like a tapestry woven with intricate details, really vibrant colors, and these subtle shifts in light and shadow. That's what reading The Goldfinch feels like.
Okay.
Her sentences are so beautifully crafted, her descriptions are so vivid, and she just has this way of drawing you into the story so completely that you almost forget you're reading.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. I can see how that kind of writing could be captivating for some readers, but maybe overwhelming for others. It's not for everyone, right?
Exactly. If you prefer more minimalist prose or fast-paced plots, The Goldfinch might feel frustrating. But if you enjoy really luxuriating in language, if you appreciate a writer who takes her time to build a world and develop her characters, then I think Tart's style will resonate with you.
This is reminding me of another book I read recently, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern.
Oh, yeah.
It also has that like really richly descriptive style and a kind of magical realism that draws you in. Have you read that?
I have, yeah. And I see the similarities. Both books create these really immersive worlds. But I think The Goldfinch is grounded in a more realistic setting, even though it does deal with these kind of larger-than-life themes.
That's helpful, I think. Those comparisons give listeners a better sense of whether or not this is something they'd enjoy.
Definitely. It's always good to have those points of reference when you're thinking about starting a new book.
So we've talked about the writing style, the themes, the characters. We know it's a long book. It requires a certain type of reader. But for those who are still on the fence, what's the ultimate takeaway? What makes The Goldfinch stand out from, say, other coming-of-age stories or books about art?
For me, it's the emotional depth and the lingering questions it raises. It's a book that stays with you long after you finish it. You think about the characters, the choices they made, and these really profound questions about life, loss, and the meaning of beauty.
So it sounds like The Goldfinch isn't just a book you read, it's a book you experience.
Exactly. It's an experience that can be challenging, but also incredibly rewarding. And for the right reader, I think it can be truly transformative.
Transformative. That's a big word. What do you mean by that? What makes it so transformative?
I think it's the combination of Tart's writing, those complex characters, and those themes she explores. It invites you to confront these difficult emotions, to think about your own assumptions, to kind of see the world in a new way.
Okay. And speaking of seeing things in a new way, what about the ending? Without giving anything away, did you find it satisfying?
The ending of this book, it really sparked a lot of debate. Some people thought it was hopeful. Others found it, I don't know, maybe ambiguous or even a little bleak. I personally thought it was really powerful. It doesn't tie everything up neatly, but it felt true to the book's themes. Life is messy and our choices have a lasting impact.
Right, right. It makes you think. It doesn't just give you all the answers.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes The Goldfinch so rewarding. It's open to interpretation and it stays with you. You find yourself thinking about those scenes, the characters, how it all connects to your own life even.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. If someone's on the fence about reading The Goldfinch, what's the verdict? Worth the commitment?
Honestly. The Goldfinch, It's not for everyone. It requires, time, attention, and a willingness to engage emotionally. But if you're looking for a book that will challenge you, move you, and really stay with you, then yeah, I'd say The Goldfinch is absolutely worth it.
Great. So to all our listeners out there, if you're intrigued, take the plunge, embrace the challenge, enjoy the journey, and see what you discover. It might just be transformative.
You think it will. Happy reading, everyone.